on Forward on Climate Spokane, which is a national event. I'm here because half the leaders in our House still deny that climate change is real, and people all over this country are like, this is ridiculous. Climate change is real, happening now, and it is even contributed by the human race. That's why we're here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm 61. I'm a retired nurse. Grew up in Detroit. Been here for 30 years almost in Spokane. I'm interested in bringing the 60s energy back, the activism and the environment as it was. This is a button from about 1971, Washington, D.C. Obviously, it's more important than ever. They want to run all these coal trains through here. That's just one problem. Pollution. Pollution causes zillions of dollars in healthcare costs that we can't afford, and it just doesn't make sense to turn a blind eye to the pollution and its effects. And then there's, the issue that I have children and I will have grandchildren someday, and I look at cities like Beijing, China, or Tehran, Iran, or LA, and the pollution hurts. It hurts our society, and it doesn't make sense. We need to do things smart.
Hank Chiappetta, Occupied. This is, to me, is about the coal trains coming through Spokane. I think that it is wrong that a private company should do that to our earth, our water, our air, the people. It spreads coal dust everywhere.
So today we're having our Move Forward on Climate Change event here in Spokane, part of a nationwide set of gatherings is going to take place that's going to culminate in the largest environmental gatherings of this sort in U.S. history. And what we're specifically looking to do here is to call out our politicians, including our chief executive and our president, on moving forward on these things that he's given such eloquent lip service to, but we need some actual movement on this. And so it's time that we start responding to climate change in an effective manner, and that's what we're letting them know right here. We have a solid group of multiple different organizations here, people from Idle No More, people from Sierra Club, 350.org. Locally here we have Coalition Builders, Occupy Spokane, and others. We have all these groups coming together to say it is time for a change, and we're looking to see you do that, and we're going to show you how to do it if you need us to.
There's a woman being dragged. They drag her to the shells, and now she's being stabbed. Maybe we should call the cops and try to stop the pain. But Monopoly is so much fun, I'd hate to blow the game.
So why are you guys here?
Because we believe in a clean environment, and we don't think that we should be shipping our coal over somewhere where it's going to get burned and make more pollution.
Want to add anything to it?
No, that covered it. We're killing ourselves with coal, and now we're turning around and selling it to another very large country that's going to finish the process. It's crazy.
Raging rallies just stand for injustice all over the country. If there's something unjust going on, you'll normally find a great reason.
That's right. That's right.
good afternoon and welcome, and thank you for being here. My name is Chris Crocker, and I'll be your MC for this afternoon for a quick program before our march. I want to point out a couple of things that before we start our march that's going to end at the main market. We're going to take a big picture, group photo, so stick around so you can get your photo taken, and the more folks the better, so don't wander off on us. And so that will be happening right after all of the speakers are done. You will also be seeing these petitions going through the crowd. Make sure you sign those. This is for President Obama's climate and clean energy legacy. We're going to send that from the Sierra Club. So, I'm just very happy to be here today. I feel like the hardest part of my job is over already, and that is this beautiful weather for today. If we could have a hand for that. I am a meteorologist. I have been for the past 20 years, the last 15 years here in Spokane, where climate change is a bit of a hard sell, as I'm sure you know. Part of the reason is, especially lately, we seem to be relatively unscathed from the climate chaos that is happening nationwide and on a global level. This winter in particular has been especially average, so much so that I'm quite bored. I could use a good storm or just an anomaly, maybe a cold snap or every day it's like, well, it's average again. Yeah, 70 degrees. How about a little global warming? Yes. Our wildfire seasons have been pretty mellow. Our snow pack has been in good shape. But you don't have to go very far from our little slice of heaven here to find the unrelenting heat that they have experienced the past calendar year. The 2012 was the hottest year on record, as I'm sure many of you know, for the lower 48 states. Washington State being the only state in the lower 48 that had average to even a little bit below average temperatures. Even Idaho, our neighbors to the south, and Oregon were just this little anomaly on the map. The heat, the drought, the hurricanes, the record tornado outbreaks, and the devastating blizzards that are affecting huge portions of the population on the East Coast. And so they're converting to the cause in mass numbers elsewhere across the country while we do our job here. I'm here today not only as a meteorologist and a mom, but also as the daughter of a nuclear physicist who spent his entire life devoted to finding clean, renewable energy sources for the Department of Energy, most notably working in fusion, which he continues to do for a privately funded company at the age of 81. And so sharing his passion for that, in 2013, we can do better than coal. Well, let's get started with our speakers, as we've got some good ones. Our first one has been a friend as the city council president for a little over a year. Spent the last year doing a great job fostering an environment that encourages small neighborhood business development. Oh, we love them. He was born right here in Spokane, and his concern with global warming goes all the way back to high school debate when he read up on the facts. Please welcome our city council president, Ben Stuckert.
Thank you to the Sierra Club, Occupy Spokane, and the Coalition Builders for inviting me to be here today. Let's everybody here give themselves a round of applause for being here today. Woo! As Chris was saying, it is a beautiful afternoon, but I stand here before you worried about what kind of days we're going to have if we continue down the path of doing nothing about climate change. What kind of world are we leaving our children if we continue to deny science and stick our collective heads in the sand? Just last week, someone wrote a letter to the editor calling climate science false. You know what? That makes me angry, makes me frustrated. Are you frustrated? Yes! Combined with the fact that people are dooming us to non-science is the twin danger of don't talk about that. It's not a local issue. Not a local issue is an excuse for people who refuse to deal with controversial items. Nope. We can't talk about how that coal on those trains is going to be burned in China, causing global warming, as if when the crops in Spokane completely change and we see more and more extreme events in Spokane, that's not a local issue. Are people insane? Yeah. Listen here, I am angry and frustrated. CO2 emissions have to decrease and we must act. Yeah. Global warming is not some controversial theory. Andrew Dessler from Texas A&M University states the science of climate change is strong. Independent research conducted around the world leaves no doubt regarding the following key points. The climate is changing. Numerous lines of physical evidence around the world, from melting ice sheets and rising sea levels to shifting seasons, provide overwhelming independent confirmation of rising temperatures. And it's not some random geographic occurrence. John Stroman in 2012 in the Vancouver Sun. The scientific consensus is solid. 97% of experts in the relevant fields agree current climate change is caused by human activity and is a very real threat. Right. If you thought having to get a supermajority to raise taxes is hard, when do you get 97% of scientists to agree on anything? I am angry and frustrated that nobody seems to be listening. This is the first presidential campaign I have followed that climate change did not even come up in debates. Are you angry and frustrated? Yeah! I have heard it argued that climate change will be good for us, and it's not going to be that bad. What a bunch of baloney. Terry Dybel argued in 2011 that global warming is the post-Cold War era's equivalent of a nuclear winter, at least as serious and considerably better supported scientifically. Over the long run, it puts dangers from terrorism and traditional military challenges to shame. It is a threat not only to the security and prosperity of the United States, but to the continued existence of life on this planet. Threat to the life on this planet. Okay, so I vented and hope we're all on the same page that climate change is real. Yes. We are ignoring it, and it's the biggest threat of life on this planet. And we're angry and frustrated. So when I get angry and frustrated, I find sometimes a little call and response is helpful. So, repeat after me. Hey, hey, ho, ho, CO2 has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, CO2 has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, CO2 has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, CO2 has got to go. Hey, hey. Made me feel a little better. But we still, you have to act. You can't just be frustrated and angry. First step, sign the letters and the postcards that Chris talked about. They're being distributed. They're at the tables over there. They are to President Obama and Governor Inslee, and they need to show leadership and put forth proposals that will stop this madness. Second step, we must work hard to elect politicians locally, statewide, and federally who will act to use less fossil fuels and more to conserve energy. We get the government that we elect. This year there are 3 important city council races that we must win if we are going to start acting locally to affect climate change. 2 of them are here, Councilman Snyder and Councilwoman Walden. Third step, join the Coal Train campaign here in Spokane in conjunction with the Sierra Club. City Council voted unanimously this year to ask that the environmental impact statement include Spokane, but the EIS will not be enough. We need to talk all of the impacts of coal trains. It's not enough to not talk about how global issues affect Spokane. And final step, change your behavior. Organizations like Sustainable Works have performed over 2,000 energy audits since 2009 and 740 energy retrofits. Just last week, a think tank stated that New York City could decrease their carbon emissions by the government by 90% by retrofitting all of the government buildings in New York City. Since 2009, Sustainable Works audits have saved enough energy to keep 8 million pounds of carbon out of our atmosphere. That is incredible. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to working with you towards a better future.
Twilla Abramson Swan is here. She is the Air Quality Coordinator for the Spokane Tribe, also very active with the Shawl Society, which is a community-based environmental justice organization focused on uranium and radiation contamination on the Spokane Reservation. She has been involved in climate change efforts for years and recently nominated to the National Tribal Air Association, representing the interests of tribes in Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. Twila has learned of the tribe's concerns throughout the region with respects to environmental, cultural, health, and other impacts from coal transportation and equipment transportation to the Keystone XL pipeline. Please welcome Twila.
Good afternoon, and I thank you for the beautiful day, everybody here for showing up. And you know, it's really an important time in our lives, especially, you know, as young people, as tribes, as, you know, I've come first as a mother, and, you know, looking and researching some of the impacts of the energy industry to here, us in Washington, where, you know, we really strive to keep our air clean and our water clean. And that's one thing that the Spokane tribe, you know, we pride ourselves in the lengths that we go to protect our people. And, you know, sometimes in the water quality debates, you know, they complain because our health restrictions are too strict, our water restrictions are too strict. But we are looking at generations, and we're looking at how that will impact our children and the fish that we eat. And you know, some of the things most central to our culture are our water, our salmon, and we're there to protect those species. And you know, just appreciate everybody for coming out, and that's why we're here. That's why we're fighting against some of these industries like the Keystone XL pipeline, the coal trains. You know, we want to make sure that communities all throughout, from mining all the way to the ports, are protected, and we're not giving that pollution back, you know, the next year after they're burning this coal in China. So we're really here, and we really appreciate the support, and we want our communities to work together and support what the tribes are doing, because essentially we're looking out for our future generations. So thank you for showing up.
Reverend Dr. Todd, excuse me, I apologize. I can tell it's my day off. My mouth thinks so, at least. Reverend Dr. Todd Eckloff has been the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church in Spokane since July 2011. Moved here from Louisville, Kentucky, and is highly appreciated for his activism in the important areas of marriage equality, gay rights, economic justice, the peace movement, and environmental concerns. Very active in the Beyond Coal campaign here in Spokane. Please welcome Reverend Dr. Todd Eckloff.
Thank you. Chris, I gotta tell you what a pleasure it is to hear a meteorologist talk about global warming. Thank you. Courageous. I don't hear that, and I always wonder why. Thank you. Thank you. You're an inspiration. Well, I'm thinking globally and acting locally, so I want to talk to you about the coal train situation. A lot of you have heard about. But first, so I don't want to be inappropriate, I understand that some people think that when foreigners come to a new country, they're obligated to learn its language. So in order not to offend anyone, I'd like to begin by saying, "Ah hest hu halt, qua chichen, hest hawichiten." That's Salish for hello and good afternoon, how are you? It's good to see you. I'm bringing this up now because a few weeks ago I just so happened to attend a hearing with the Army Corps of Engineers. Some of you there? Yeah! Yeah, about the impact of increasing the number of coal trains through Spokane. And I knew one of the fellows who got up to testify wasn't from around these parts because he spoke with a strange accent. Being from Kentucky myself, I figured he must be from the South. I know a Southerner when I hear one. By the sound of it, I figured that this fellow was from even deeper south than the Bluegrass State, maybe from Tennessee, or even West Virginia. In fact, I was wanting to point him in the direction of a good country road that could take him home. I'm not sure if I remember it correctly, but I think his name was Coleman. Yeah, that's it, Mr. Coleman. If you were there, you might remember him. He got up and said, "The railroad built Spokane. The railroad was here before any of you. You knew what you were getting when you moved here, and if you don't like it, you can choose to move away." Did you hear him? Yes! Well, Mr. Coleman, I want to introduce you to another Salish phrase. Tom Unik Hook! It ain't true. Let me hear you say that. Tom Unik Hook! Tom Unik Hook! Now my Salish friends will forgive me for butchering the language. I'm speaking it with a southern accent. The people came first, Mr. Coleman. And you better get down that country road and tell the coal industry that here in Spokane, the people will always come first. Yeah. It isn't true, Mr. Coleman. It isn't true. The people came first, the people who first lived here and hunted these fertile grounds and fished for fresh, safe salmon in the clean waters of the Spokane River arrived 8,000 to 12,000 years before the Northern Pacific Railroad ever laid its first track. You say the railroad was here first, Mr. Coleman? Tom Unik Hook! Tom Unik Hook! Tom Unik Hook! Help me out here! Tom Unik Hook! Tom Unik Hook! It isn't true! It ain't true. And then he told us, if you don't let us run a coal pipeline through your fair city, you're going to cost people their jobs and their livelihoods. Why, if you protect the environment, you're going to destroy the economy. Wow. Well, let us tell you something, Mr. Coleman. Help us out. Tom Unik Hook! Tom Unik Hook! Tom Unik Hook! It isn't true. In my old neck of the woods, traditional coal country, the coal industry itself has destroyed thousands of mining jobs that once supported the economies of entire towns. Sure, they had to put up with black lung disease and an occasional mine collapse, but they were willing to risk it if it meant they could pay their bills and provide for their families. But then Mr. Coleman thought, hey, wait a minute, why am I paying all these people to burrow into the hills when I could just use machines to decapitate the mountains and bring the coal to me? So he killed thousands of mining jobs and dumped the mountaintops and coal dust onto the homes and in the water and in the air of once thriving communities. And today they are forced to live in these impoverished, broken, filthy towns because all the home equity they were building up while their sons and fathers and grandfathers were dying of black lung has been buried beneath tons of dust and dirt. Those homes are worthless now. Between 1985 and today, the coal industry has laid off 85% of its Tennessee workforce alone. Yet it's increased surface mining there by nearly 50%. Now there are less than 550 coal mining jobs in Tennessee compared to thousands just 20 years ago. Today, Tennessee represents just 0.2% of all the coal mined in the U.S. But the industry has left this magnificent state with thousands of acres of scarred lands. Likewise in West Virginia, coal industry jobs have dropped from 130,000 to just 30,000 because of mountaintop removal. Yet there are 175,000 tourist jobs in Tennessee alone, reflecting an industry that generates nearly $10 billion for that state because of people who want to come visit the beautiful Smoky Mountains and the Appalachians, the very mountains the coal companies are splitting in two in the name of a few jobs. Tom Unik Hook! Tom Unik Hook! Tom Unik Hook! Tom Unik Hook! It isn't true! And here we are now, in beautiful Spokane. Mr. Coleman wants us to believe we're going to cost people jobs if we don't turn our city into a conveyor belt so he can transport the coal he digs out of the mountains in Montana and send it all the way to China. He wants us to pollute our air with more carcinogenic diesel fumes and filthy coal dust in the name of a few jobs, even though our local community has spent billions to attract tourists to our fair city, including $3.5 billion to improve the downtown area we're standing in right now. Why would we spend billions to attract tourists to Spokane, near nature, near perfect, then allow Mr. Coleman to come and foul it up?
Yeah.
Increasing the number of coal trains through our city will cost jobs, not save them.
Yes.
Tom Unik Hook! Tom Unik Hook! Tom Unik Hook! It isn't true. And finally, Mr. Coleman told us, hey, you don't have to worry about those diesel fumes. They're just cute little old itty-bitty particles. Why, you can't even see them. So don't worry your pretty little minds. Tom Unik Hook! Tom Unik Hook! Tom Unik Hook! It isn't true. Mr. Coleman, there are a lot of things I can't see that I don't want to tangle with. Viruses, bacteria, cancer cells, they're all too small to see, but I don't want any of them. And just last summer, at the same time it wasn't safe for us to go outside because the smoke from hundreds of miles away was lingering in our inverted air, the Environmental Protection Agency, along with the World Health Organization, reclassified diesel engine exhaust from a probable to a certain carcinogenic. And when we breathe in these cancer-causing particulates, they attach themselves to our lungs and remain inside us for the rest of our lives. Do we really want to allow Mr. Coleman to pump even more of these deadly fumes into the air we breathe, into the air our children breathe, into the air we know is going to stay with us all summer long and not budge?
No!
I don't think so. Tom Unik Hook! Tom Unik Hook! Tom Unik Hook! It isn't true! Today, Mr. Coleman, we've got a booming green energy industry in our state that's providing new, clean jobs right here in Spokane. Companies like Sustainable Works, PCI Renewables, Northwest Solar Electric, Eco Depot, and others that are building profitable, sustainable, innovative industry right here at home. And we don't want to risk these jobs for the sake of propping up your dying and deadly business, Mr. Coleman. Excuse me, as the I've given 2 sermons already today. This is my 3rd. There's the Spokane people also say, Syed Unik Hook. Am I doing okay? Syed Unik Hook. It is true. It is true. And if we need a second opinion, we'll ask a real doctor. Thank you very much. Syed Unik Hook. Syed Unik Hook. Syed Unik Hook. It is true. And whether or not we are among the descendants of the first people to occupy this land thousands of years ago, or among those who have arrived here more recently, but love this land and its beauty and its way of life, we come first, Mr. Coleman. Our environment, our economy, our health comes first. Syed Unik Hook! Syed Unik Hook! It is true. Thank you.
Our next speaker is a mother, organic farmer, and advocate for local food and sustainable living. She's been an organizer for Amnesty International, a longtime member of the Sierra Club, and has been involved with numerous environmental and social justice groups over the last 14 years, including the Beyond Coal campaign here in Spokane to stop coal exports. Please welcome Alyssa Kraft.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for taking the time to come out. We're all here for the same reason, because we're concerned about our future generations. And as a new mother, my concern has deepened even further. But I'm here today, like many of our speakers, to specifically talk about coal and show our country, our nation, our city, that we are absolutely opposed to coal trains coming through our city, through the heart of our town, and spewing out diesel fumes and toxic coal dust onto our children. The coal will ultimately be burned, like many people have already been talking about, in China, and contribute to irreversible ocean acidification, the melting of the polar ice caps, and rising mercury in our water. So this is not, like everybody else was saying, just a local issue. This is a global issue, and it's important that we tell our elected officials, especially Governor Jay Inslee, newly elected Governor Jay Inslee, to oppose these proposals. We have to hold President Obama to his promise that he made in the State of the Union address for a greener future for tomorrow. And it's up to us to tell our city officials, too, that we mean business. So really, what is the best thing that we can do for our children and for our children's children to change the world? Mahatma Gandhi said, "Be the change you want to see in the world." So that's what we have to do. It is about writing our politicians. It is about calling on our president. But what it's really about is changing your everyday life. Going out into your community and showing people how they can reduce their carbon footprint. You are what you buy. Buy local food. Dry your clothes on the line. If you can afford it, buy a solar panel. Walk more, bike more, drive less. These are the small changes that added up will all make a difference for tomorrow. And support places in your community that do just that. We have the community building right down the street on Main Street that's run by solar panels, rooftop greenhouses, and water recycling. And we're going to march to the Main Market Co-op that supports local and organic farmers. So as a mother, that is the best thing that I can do for my future generations, is to change my everyday life and to show the world, we can be an example for the world, that every small action makes a big change. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. I'd like to be more like you. That is wonderful, all you're doing. John Waite is a small business owner, property developer, and community leader. He has owned Merlin's Comics and Games, love it, for over 20 years, served on the Downtown Business Improvement District Board, and is the current chair of the Spokane Regional Cable Advisory Board. You may have heard his weekly radio show, Make Government Work, on KYRS, Thin Air Community Radio. He's also run for public office multiple times as an independent, looking for nonpartisan, inclusive, real-world solutions to the environmental, economic, and social issues we all face. Please welcome John Waite.
Hi there. Thank you to all the various No Coal Coalition people, Sierra Club, and Occupy Spokane for having me here. I feel blessed and incredibly lucky to be part of this. And I had all these great ideas. She just stole half my thing, which was great. And I just had to think, actually, and I'm going to date myself here, kind of looking around and remembering where we're at. This is Riverfront Park, which, if you'll remember, in the 70s, was a very different place. And all of you people that are old enough to remember Expo 74, I am a child of Expo 74 and Woodsy Owl and Give a Hoot and Do Not Pollute. And I kind of wonder what happened to that whole ethos. What happened to that, like, caring about that and making it public and having that be part of like our grade school experience, and having our kids just think the first thing they're going to do when they see trash or they see a can or a bottle, they're going to recycle it. And we have to work that way. You know, it's a cliche, but it's going to be all about the kids. What we're working on is going to affect our world for, you know, for ages and ages. I come from a background of like science fiction. Arthur C. Clarke, Larry Niven, Isaac Asimov were all my heroes and all the things I learned. And science fiction gave us answers to all this, but now we have science answers to all this. And as Ben said, you'll see a lot of like disinformation. And I am adamant that we need to directly attack disinformation. We cannot allow people to say, you know, 97% of science is wrong because there's a few crackpots that don't agree. And we have to fight this. We have to like fight their anti-intellectualism. We have to look at science and look at these solutions. And I guess the other thing that I would say to that is it's going to be expensive, and we're going to all have to give up something. We live in an incredible consumer society, which in my book, as a small business person and a person that sells things and makes money, is not sustainable. We can't live in a world that is unsustainable. And all of you people, I think, realize that. Everybody that's out here understands this. The other part of that is we have to spread that message. We have to have a message that the other people, whoever they are, the other people that aren't here, will understand. And how does it affect their lives? It's not enough just to like say they're wrong, and even if we know they're wrong, it's not enough just to say they're wrong. We have to have a message that they can like hear, and you have to kind of be able to speak their language, and you have to sit down with them one-on-one and talk to them. And this may take decades. You know, we may not have decades, but it may take decades anyway. One of my favorite stories that I saw, an article, I think it was in Mother Jones, about the head of the Tea Party and the head of Move On get together and they have regular meetings. And they get together one-on-one or little groups of 6 people, and they have a real conversation, and they get rid of the politics, and they get rid of the anger and the hostility and the news media guys like throwing everything around and trying to be caustic. And they try to have these little conversations, and I think those little conversations could grow into bigger and better conversations. Because as great as it is to have all you out here, we can't just speak to the choir. You know, we have to reach out. We have to reach out to that, you know, 90-80% of people that they don't know, they don't hear it. You know, you guys see them every day out there. So think about how can we reach those people? How can we message so they understand? How can we tone down a little bit so they'll listen and they'll sit and they'll think about what we say? And finally, we really have to beat on our politicians. You know, they don't always listen. The fun part, beating on the politicians. And you know what? They can take it. I know a lot of these guys, they're great people. You know, they'll sit down and they'll listen to you, demand that they have the same interests that you have, and especially at like the state and the national level, don't let the corporatists be in charge. You know, we want things that work in our local community. We want things that would affect our lifestyle and our life here in Spokane. Again, if you remember Expo 74 and all that, we used to have dirty air in Spokane, and they had air advisories. You know, I'm happy to live in a world where we don't have that. You know, if you were asthmatic, you couldn't go out in the 70s on a bad day. So let's keep working on that. Live the life, show people what you can do, keep talking the right message, reach out to people that don't understand this. There is hope for all of this, and thanks you all for being here.
Up next is Dan McClay. He's a recently retired registered nurse, worked for 23 years for Providence here in Spokane as an RN for 33 years.
Born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. Former Chrysler assembly line worker. I bet he's got some stories there. Now, gone from working for Chrysler to riding his bicycle for transportation. Awesome. Had a cabin cruiser boat, now he's got a kayak. He was arrested and jailed 3 days in San Luis Obispo, California in 1981 for protesting the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant. And he lived, speaking of stories, lived on an organic farm hippie commune in the 70s in New Hampshire. Come on up, we want to hear from you.
Oh, no, it's not a blue festival. Okay, I'm on it. So my name's Dan, retired nurse. And one other thing I want to talk about is the coal trains. I worked on a respiratory floor, and I was trying to think of an analogy that we could all quickly understand. Let's say you have to be on oxygen 24/7 because you have emphysema or COPD, chronic obstructive lung disease. What would that be like? Well, imagine that you had one of those kangaroo backpacks that you wear if you're hiking or biking, and it's got water in it and a tube in your mouth. Suppose you had to take a sip of water every 5 seconds or you felt like you were going to die. That's kind of what it's like when you have to be on oxygen because you have lung disease. That's what it would be like. You'd have to take oxygen constantly or you feel like you're going to die. And the coal trains and dust from drought that blows through town here, they put little tiny particles in your lungs, and your lungs can't get rid of them. So over time, it scars your lung tissue, and you end up not being able to breathe. And that's what happens, and the coal trains are going to, cause that kind of thing. That coal dust is the most toxic dust of any kind of dust in the world. So I got kids, and I will have grandkids someday, and I don't want them to have to be exposed to that kind of stuff. So I'm going to ride my bicycle. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan. City Council member Amber Waldrup is here. She is a Spokane native and resident of the city for more than 26 years, living primarily in Spokane's northeast neighborhoods. Following graduation from Gonzaga Prep, Amber attended Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., and eventually moved to Seattle, where she worked as an organizer and advocate for public involvement in the extensive cleanup of the highly contaminated Hanford Nuclear Reservation. Amber felt called to return to Spokane in 2003 to put her education and experience to work for the good people of the city of Spokane. We're so glad you did. Please welcome Amber Waldrup.
Thanks, everybody. Well, I know everyone's ready to start marching here soon. The sun came out again, which is great. Thank you for inviting me to come speak. It's just an honor to be up here with so many wonderful speakers. Can we give everyone a round of applause that was up here before? Thank you. Thank you. My father is a registered nurse, so thank you for speaking to all the important health impacts that we need to be concerned about here in Spokane. Well, I thought it was interesting. Did anyone open up today's Spokesman Review? And the top story was about air pollution and about how in Spokane we've improved it. We've made a lot of improvements, but as more people move to this area and as global change happens and climate change happens and the type of energy that we use, if we're not going to make changes in that, we're going to be at risk again here in Spokane of having poor air quality, and we can't do that. So I thought that was interesting in today's paper. When I opened that up this morning, I was going to come down here and speak. And it's just, it's something we have to continue to be aware of. And for my kids, the other day, Crystal had them write a little sign about what they cared about, what they were concerned about with the coal trains. And my daughter wrote, I want clean air. And that's really what it comes down to for the next generation and the next generation. I wanted to share another quick story. When I moved back to Spokane about 10 years ago, one of the first people I met, and I'm sure many of you have met this person, he was kind of a prophet on global warming and climate change, and that was Julian Powers. Does anyone remember? Julian would come to every event. Let's give him a round of applause. Julian would come to every event and talk about, we need to be concerned about this. We need to be taking action. Hey, environmental groups, wake up. We need to be working on climate change. He was calling it global warming. Now we look at it as warming and cooling, so climate change. But he was a prophet, and he taught me a lot. And now I'm up here having a chance to be a local elected official, a mother, a person of faith who's really involved and active in trying to make a difference. I looked up the word policy this morning because I thought, you know, I use that word a lot. Policymakers. We need to change policy. But what does it really mean? A plan or a course of action. A proposed or adopted course. You know, and 70 or 80 years ago, we probably more than 100 years ago, we plotted a course that used coal, petroleum products, lots of resources to move our nation forward. And now, in the last 20, 30 years, we've realized that we need to plot a new course with clean energy that moves us forward as a nation. Someone brought the American flag today. Thank you for bringing that. I think as Americans, we can be leaders in this, of plotting a new course, but do we have the courage to do that? Do we have the courage to change our policies? We had heard a couple people talk about Sustainable Works. I had them come to my house and make some changes to my heating system and my windows. And people say, well, you can't give incentives. That's picking winners in the economy. You can't give incentives to this clean energy. But we have picked winners. We have picked winners in the last 100 years. We need to pick the new winners. They're going to move us in the right direction, and that's the opportunity that this brings us. You know, new jobs in a new economy, clean energy, and I think that's where we need to go. And you need to, thank you, we need to push the local elected officials. Don't beat on me, but that's okay, it's all right. But I'll take it. But push the local officials, the state and the national officials to make the policy changes to chart the new course. Because, you know, when California made a huge change in its emission levels for automobiles, that changed the course for our entire automobile industry of a new level that they had to meet. So let's move forward, let's keep plotting the new course for clean energy. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to marching with you.
Before we hear from our last speaker, I just want to remind you one more time that we're going to take a big group photo right after our last speaker right here in front of our beautiful fountain, which is not on right now, but with the beautiful blue skies behind us. So start lining up right after that. Don't forget to sign those letters to our Governor Jay Inslee and President Obama. And I also just wanted to thank once again the Coeur d'Alene tribe, the drummers. That was a lovely treat. And our last speaker, last but not least, is Justin Ellenbecker. Justin served in Iraq and was medically discharged for injuries received in combat while in the U.S. Army. Justin helped care for his wife's grandparents in Dallas, Texas for 4 years before moving back to his hometown of Spokane in the summer of 2011, where he has been very heavily involved in local activism. His inspiration for this involvement in the community is to see his son and others with special needs inherit a world worth living in. Please welcome Justin.
Now, normally the people of you that are familiar with having to listen to my voice see me behind a megaphone, but you know what? After Ben Stuckert led those chants, I think I really need to hand that over to that guy. Talk about somebody who could lead some chants there. In recognition of him and recognition of several others, I'd like to make a few statements about that. First of all, we have an excellent gentleman here, Ziggy, as he's well known. This guy put everything together, brought all these groups together so that we could have this event, so that we could have something happening here in Spokane, and brought the committees together for it. So a big hand to Ziggy. An individual that can't be with us today, Terry Hill, he's experiencing some medical conditions. He was part of the committee that helped put this together too. So if you could please put your hands together for him, I'm sure he'd appreciate it. And then here's Mr. Quiet over here, Greg Gower, who went ahead and brought on this equipment and then helped to set it up. That's another major thing in this step. Now on that, there's a great saying that a group of activists, Backbone, says, if the people lead, the leaders will follow. But we have a really substantial change that's taken place here within our community. Right there, we have Council Member Snyder, we have Councilwoman Waldorf, and we have our Council President all right here. We have strong leaders on these issues working for strong change. So that's something to be proud of in this community. So what we're looking for right here is to change what the leaders are doing at higher levels so that we can get true systematic change on these things. Related to the Keystone XL pipeline, which needs to stop, and related to the coal trains traveling right here through our backyards. Right now we have over 30 going through a day. We're talking about an increase of possibly 50. How many coal trains do we want passing through here? Exactly! I'm glad to hear that. You guys are a great crowd to be here with. However, there is one thing to pay significant attention to related to that. There have been municipalities, there have been groups that have gone and fought for these things before. In a great landmark case, which was a Supreme Court decision of the city of Philadelphia versus New Jersey, New Jersey put in state laws in the late 70s that said you cannot bring in toxic pollution. You cannot bring in any of your waste to be dumped here. The people came together, they rose up, and they did that. And the Supreme Court said, and I quote, "The court found a New Jersey law prohibiting the importation of solid and liquid waste which originated or was collected outside the territory limits of the states to be unconstitutional because it violated the Commerce Clause of the Constitution." You can't say no to people dumping in your backyard. It's unconstitutional. That's why it's important that we have groups like SMAC and others here who are fighting to overturn this flaw in the Constitution that says we don't have the right to make decisions for ourselves. So thank you to those people. What we've had take place is all these different people talking about different ways that they can look inwardly and make changes within their behavior, their shopping habits, all these other things. Ways that you can influence your politicians. What I offer is another one to add to this amazing tool belt of different tools we can use to defeat what is trying to kill us. And that is one that's been brought forward. You've seen it a couple of times. It's the Community Bill of Rights. It specifically says that corporations are not people, along with SMAC, that's the fourth provision. But first off in it, it has provisions that say you cannot develop in areas where the community doesn't want it. It's a rights-based initiative to give the rights back to us to decide what we get to choose. Because to me, I think we're the ones that should decide what happens in Spokane, not whoever can grease the most palms. Thank you for the strong agreement on that. So, I'm going to lead into a quote here by Bill McKibben. He was the co-founder and current director of 350.org, one of the groups that's organized this at the national level. This is what he had to say. "That's why I'm so happy to see people pursuing a variety of methods to win this fight, from trying to influence national, state, and county politics to trying to pass this ordinance designed to make local control meaningful. Somehow these strategies must combine to win this battle. The stakes are simply too high." That's exactly it. So what we need to do is we need to come together with all these great solutions and start working towards this. We have legislators that we can pry their ear. We have ones here who are already with us. Let's make this happen. So I'm not going to go too long, but I have one final quote by Virginia Rasmussen, and then I'll get off the stage so we can get to the furthering of our activities. "We are fed up with behaving like subordinates, content to influence the decisions of corporate boards. Having influence is valuable, but influencing is not deciding. We're wary of waging long, hard battles merely for the right to know. Knowing is critical, but knowing is not deciding. We're tired of exercising our right to dissent as the be-all and end-all. Dissent is vital, but dissenting is not deciding. Influencing, knowing, dissenting, participating, all are important to be a democratic or to a democratic lifestyle, but not one of them carries with it the authority to decide, the power to be in charge. We are in charge of Spokane. We will direct how this goes, we will change our city to take care of our future generations. Thank you for being a part of this rally.
So we have to start wrapping things up. So I just want to take another quick thank you, a big round of applause for the Spokane Coalition Builders, Occupy Spokane, and the Sierra Club Beyond Coal campaign for bringing all of us together on this beautiful day for such a good cause. And I am not a very organized individual, so I just kind of go over there and we'll take your picture.